vegetable salad.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today's video is going to be about my weekly meal prep. Every week since October-ish, I've been doing almost the same meal prep. Every morning is overnight oats, and every lunch is tofu, some kind of veggie, and some kind of like rice or quinoa. So I've gotten it down to kind of a science to make it the easiest possible prep with the least amount of work and at a decent price. So cost per serving is pretty decent. It doesn't get boring because you change up what you're adding to your meal prep every day. So basically this video is going to be about creating the base with which you can enhance with different fruits and different sauces and things like that. So without further ado, I'm just going to go ahead and get into it, and then we can explain as we go. So the very first thing I did not show in the video, but you can see behind my elbow, is my rice cooker. I've got 2 cups of quinoa, 2 cups of dry quinoa, and then I filled it up to the level 2 with water, and I press start. I have a very fancy rice cooker, and it takes forever to make quinoa. So if you have a rice cooker, or if you're cooking it on a pot on a stove, it may be a lot faster. So that's why I did the quinoa first, so that way it'll be finished by the time the tofu and the broccoli and everything else is finished. So that way there's a lot less downtime waiting for it. But this is just my method. You know, like I said, your mileage may vary. And now we'll start working on our overnight oats. I'm going ahead and making 10 containers of overnight oats. That's for 2 people for 5 days. I lay out my containers, and I'm using, these are just like the rolled oats you can get, the Quaker oats from Costco. They turn out to be 7 cents per serving, so half a cup of rolled oats per container. They're pretty cheap. You can't use the quick oats or it'll turn into glue. And then I've got 1 tablespoon of chia seeds. Chia seeds from Costco end up being 27 cents per serving. That would be 1 tablespoon. And then I'm going to add 2 tablespoons, or about 30-ish grams of protein powder. Depending on what protein powder you use, your price may really change. I think the veg one, I got these on a Black Friday deal, so I got a really good deal on them. They're going to work out to be the most expensive thing in the overnight oats at about $2.15, between that range per serving. Stir all the dry ingredients up with a chopstick. That's my preferred stirring utensil. And then we're going to add soy milk. I use 2 containers of soy milk, 2 quarts of soy milk. So it's 3/4 of a cup of soy milk per container. And that's going to run you about, depending on what flavor, if you get the plain or the vanilla, about 30 cents per container. So all in all, your overnight oats base, it comes to be about $2.77 per container. This is before you're going to add your berries. So depending on season, depending on what you like, your berries could be super expensive. I've gotten berries, $6 a container. I've gotten them way cheaper. It just kind of depends. Lately, I've just been using frozen blueberries from the freezer section. Nothing wrong with that, but it just kind of depends on what you want to do. I add about a half a cup to maybe 3/4 a cup of berries on top in the morning, and then I head off to work. It's really easy, and you get a different flavor each day. That's me showing off that, oops, I forgot to film it, but I do have quinoa in the container. The quinoa ends up being, you want to end up with a half of a cup of cooked quinoa per container. Ends up being 28 cents per serving, about that. And then here I'm just making 5. So I cut up my tofu. I don't press tofu ever. I just cut out the container, I chop it up into cubes, and then I spritz a tiny amount of olive oil on top, and then I put it into an oven at 400 degrees for about 25 minutes. I do it every single week. It always turns out great. there's zero flavor to it whatsoever, that's where you're going to need to add sauce. The tofu, if you get it from Costco, here in Hawaii, it's a little bit more expensive. It runs about 75 cents per serving. I'm sure that there are other places that you could get tofu a lot cheaper, but that's just the ones that I was using, the organic firm tofu. And then I use 2 bags of the Costco frozen broccoli, separate them between 5 containers, because I'm just making 5 lunches here. Works out to about $1 per serving of broccoli. I don't cook it, I don't roast it, I don't do nothing. It's literally frozen. I take it out and I try to evenly distribute it between 5 containers, and then that's it for the broccoli. These are going to go into a microwave later when I get to work, so there's nothing more to do here. And now we're waiting on the quinoa and the tofu to cook. So while you're waiting on your quinoa and tofu, this is where you can decide how fancy you want to be, what kind of bougie person you are. Do you want to make your own sauce? Would you like to make a queso? Would you like to do a salsa? Would you like some kind of tahini lemon garlic concoction? Would you want maybe a barbecue sauce? Maybe you want to buffaloize your meal. I've had this meal 100 different ways. It just depends on your mood. So typically I'm a little bit lazy and I just buy a sauce. So I don't usually make my own sauce. I have made my own sauce, and it's fun to make your own sauce, and you save a little money, and making your own sauce is really easy, and you can get really creative. You could do a lemon poppy seed, you could do a creamy cilantro, you can do whatever you want, like get really, really creative. But lately I have been all about just making things as easy as possible, and I just buy a sauce. So whatever I find at the grocery store in the discount bin, or just not even, I just get whatever kind of sauce that they have. Hummus has been a real go-to. Big blob of hummus in there will definitely change your macros. So I do have the macros on these and the calories on these meals. The overnight oats, just the base before you add any fruit to it, is going to be 423-ish calories. That's about 29 grams of protein, 45 carbs, and 12 grams of fat. When you add your berries, you're going to add a lot more carbs to it. So just consider that as part of, if you're tracking your macros or tracking your calories for whatever reason, to meet your goals, just keep that in mind. You want to add some nuts to it. You want to add some hemp seeds. You want to add anything else, whatever, turmeric, whatever you want to add to it. It's going to change the calorie makeup a little bit. For the tofu, broccoli, quinoa, that works out to be 295 calories, so it's very low calorie, 24 grams of protein, 33 grams of carbs, and only 10 grams of fat. So this is where you have a little bit of license, like depending on what your goals are for your health. You have a little bit of license to really zhuzh up your lunch. So barbecue sauce is a really good one. Barbecue pineapple. Maybe add black bean salsa, some hot sauce, avocado, some guac. Maybe throw in like the lemon tahini. That's such a popular one. Like, you can find those recipes everywhere on the internet. YouTube has a ton of great recipes for like a lemon tahini. Kind of throw it in a mason jar, put the lid on it, shake it up, and then boom, you've got sauce for the rest of the week. Something like that would be really awesome. Some fresh herbs would be really nice. Make your own sauce if you want to make your own sauce. I just don't really want to make my own sauce right now. I'm at this stage in my life where I just want to buy a sauce. So it definitely adds to the price per container when you buy a sauce versus making your own. So just keep that in mind. Okay, we're getting to the point where the oven is dinging and the rice cooker's about to go off. So we're just going to portion out the tofu. The tofu is nice and brown. It's not too crispy. It's still pretty hot, but I just kind of separate it into 5, sections, or I'll count how many. It's like 10 or 12 tofu cubes per container, whatever. And then I'm just going to add those on top of the already frozen broccoli, which is going to help it cool down a lot faster, which means it can go into the fridge a lot faster. So there's no waiting around for your meal to cool down before you put it in your fridge, so you don't heat everything up in your fridge. It just is a real quick and easy, just chuck it in there. And just now the little music went off on the rice cooker, so my quinoa is ready. And again, I'm gonna go ahead and portion it out by half cups, which does leave a little bit leftover quinoa for, some other meal. It's not quite even. There's still a little bit extra in the container when you do it this way, but you get a little extra quinoa for another meal. And we'll just go ahead and kind of spread that out so that it cools down faster. And this is all going to go in the fridge. You don't have to wait too long. Maybe just a little bit, because there was a little bit of steam coming off of that quinoa. So that gives you time to clean. But that's about it. So this is like the easiest, cheapest meal plan that I've run across. I do this every single week. It takes less than an hour. If you get your oven preheated and your quinoa cooking, by the time you're pulling out the tofu and pulling out the quinoa to put it away, I mean, that's, start to finish an hour. Like you just can't compete with that. It's really, really easy. And that's breakfast and lunches are done for the week. Come home, you're hungry, you've got plenty of other things that we can talk about later for dinner options, but as far as breakfast and lunch, we are set for the week. No having to think about, oh, I should order lunch at work or whatever. So that alone has saved me a lot of money, I guess, this year, in that I haven't had to buy breakfast or lunch when I get to work. That's something that I used to do all the time. It was terrible. I would get to work, I'd be starving. I would end up grabbing breakfast, grabbing coffee, ordering out for lunch. It was just like, that really adds up. And this is a year where we're saving a little money and, trying to hit some goals with our calories and our macros and working out. And anyway, this has just been what I've been doing since, like I said, about October. So if you have any questions or if you have any ideas, I don't know if you noticed, but in the video watching it back, I realized I added 3 scoops of protein to 2 of those breakfasts, and I definitely didn't notice it until it was too late. So it's just kind of funny watching the video back. I'm like, oh yeah, that's why those were so thick, and they didn't want to stir up. All right, well, that's it for now. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Later.